Welcome to the panel presentation. I am Mark Braun, and I have the privilege of moderating the panel today. Stories we're about to hear right now, we're going to learn the impact of the behavior and attitudes of others and how that shaped their experience in Needham. Today, we're going to hear from Sensory Diego. Sensory is the president of the Metco Parent Council, parent of current Metco students and a former Metco student herself. We're going to hear from Leah Sims, who will share the experience of raising interracial children in the Needham Public Schools. And then finally, we're going to hear from Manny Iyer, who's lived in Needham with some physical challenges, and will share what it's like to have some of these challenges and how others can be helpful to him. Each of them will share their experience, and then we'll have a conversation with the panel. We welcome and invite your questions. Please use the chat, and we'll provide some time to have that conversation. We're really grateful for the willingness of the panel to share their stories and to be vulnerable. So let's start with Sensory Diego.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Like Mark said, my name is Sensory Diego, and I just want to say thank you to the Needham Diversity team for inviting me to share my voice. So what does my voice really mean? Like, how do I add to the Needham culture, and how can I help you understand kind of like my perspective? I am a child of immigrant parents who were educated here and have gone on to get multiple degrees. I am a Boston born and bred resident, so I have inner city, but I'm also a Metco alum. So I've been through what my children and some of the children of some of the families out there have been through. And then now I'm a parent. So what that does is that gives me the unique perspective in each situation. But I'm Black, I'm a Latina, I live in the city, I grew up and educated in the suburbs, and I have been pulled over, I have been followed, I have been unjustly and rightfully accused of things that were outside of my nature because it's assumed that I am Black. As a parent, it's hard to strike first. I've got to always put my smile on first and really see a situation, to not jump into it head first as, you know, it's a race issue. But sometimes you've got to fight for your children. And this is why 4 years ago, I chose to accept to be the Metco president. And for the past 4 years, I have tried to fight to give voice to Metco parents so that they feel that they can say what they need to say and be represented in a town that it was underrepresented by Metco and by minorities as it was. And through that, we've made great strides. We have continued to do things. In the summer, we did hosted a conversation with 80 plus families, including Metco and Needham, to kind of come together and really dissect the problem. The problem is not new, and it won't end today, but I think by keeping the conversation alive, the next generation won't have what my generation and what my kids are still going through in Needham. And I have plenty of stories, plenty of things I've heard firsthand, but I just wanted to say that it is needed to hear. And I, again, am thankful to be here.
Maybe do you want to just share one story that might be helpful just to
Okay.
Keep it real?
So when the year that I became president, my son started in the 6th grade, and it was the summer before that I learned of a practice that now is supposed to be shelved, but I learned of a practice that was happening in High Rock. And what it was is they were looking at a picture, and if you were a student of color, then they grouped you into 3 clusters. High Rock has 5 clusters. So that means 2 clusters will not have racial diversity included in it. So that already is a problem, because the purpose of Metco, the purpose of being in towns and integrating and all of these things is to have experience with people of other colors, other races and other cultures. And so that was a problem. But then on the fact that it was being led by the school and backed by the district made it another problem. It wasn't just one person, a faculty. It was something that was actually being practiced. And the fact that it was with pushback when it was brought up really disheartened me. And it really made these family, it was 10 of us, two actually were Metco family, including myself, and the others were of mixed backgrounds that lived in Needham. And we all came to the common ground of, this is not right. My kids should not be in this cluster because they're Black. And this teacher is supposedly supposed to be culturally accepting. There isn't anything that a white teacher or a Black teacher should not be able to do in the terms of studies. So with that, this group of parents who were amazing parents, and still to this day I talk to them, we all got together and became united. And in that, we went to the school board. We presented with a lawyer backing from the Racial Justice League, basically facts of why this is wrong. And we will proceed with legal action if the town does not stop. This was the birth of the racial equity program that is pushed so heavily now. But I'm giving you the background of where it came from. And as a parent who sat there with my child, who cried with my child, who sat with other parents hearing other stories, it needs to be known that just because I'm Black doesn't mean I have to be on my left or I have to be on my right. I can be here with you talking and sitting at the same table. So that's one story. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sansri. And there's lots of chat comments, people really giving you a shout out for just your courage and for your truth. And it really matters. And I'd be remiss if I didn't share this. It was our 5th Diversity Summit. It was November 2016. It was a different feeling in the air because of the election. We had a few Metco students who were sharing and they were so eloquent and so smart, and it just put a little brightness in what was a dark day in November 2016. And I think many of us are grateful that it's a different feeling in 2020. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move to Leah Sims, who will just share her experience of raising interracial family in Needham.
Hi, my name is, first of all, thanks for having me in the panel. This, I will say, is a little bit out of my comfort zone. I did speak with Mark prior to this, and I thought that one of the things for me is that I'm just going to try to speak from my heart today. Not a formal speaker, but once again, my name's Leah Sims, and I just want to give a little bit of background of myself before moving into experiences of living in Needham as an interracial family and raising 2 biracial children. I'm originally from California. I grew up in Northern California, met my husband in Long Beach, California. He is originally from the, I can't read if I take these off. He's originally from Newport, Rhode Island. We met working at the same company. In '92, he moved back here. He's, like I said, originally from Newport. He wanted to relocate back to the East Coast. I joined him after we became engaged, and we got married here. I will say, moving from California to Boston, we originally lived in Boston, was a change. I felt like when I used to go to Stop and Shop, I was like Stop and Stress. I just was a different type of culture than living in California. We originally lived in an apartment, and we did buy a house in West Roxbury, and moved to Needham in 2003. And we have 2 daughters, and they were born in Boston. My daughters went through all of Needham public schools. I think that I saw in the chat, I think it was Gretchen or somebody along those terms. One of the things that became more aware to me as being a mother of 2 Black daughters is microaggressions, and I never really kind of knew that term or whichever. When we first moved here, we went to a grocery store, and somebody came up and said to me, "Oh, are your children mulatto?" I was like, "I haven't heard that term in a long time." And I didn't know what to say. I just kind of like sometimes questions make me go, And I'm going to go back to when Nikki said earlier today, it's like I need to get my voice louder because sometimes I don't think I would speak up enough. And that's something I'm learning. When I would pick up my children in new locations, I would get looks like, oh, are they adopted? Or kids would ask my kids if that's their mom. When my husband picks up, there was not any questions asked. The other thing, so I did talk to my daughters a little bit before I presented here today, and they are very aware that they are minority children in Needham. And that grew up in Needham. Kind of the opposite from some comments earlier is that when they went into middle school, there would be assumptions that they were Metco kids right off the top of the, top of their head. They're like, oh, where do you live in Boston? They're like, we don't, we live in Needham, once they started pulling in with other children. And they said, we're residents, and even we're asked by teachers, oh, don't forget to get on the Metco bus. They're like, well, we don't need the Metco bus. But I will say on the other side, I think that the schools did attempt or did try to be racial balanced once they hit upper grades. They did both notice that as they were going through the Needham schools, and I can't speak for it now because they're in college and one has graduated, is that there were not any really teachers of color in the Needham schools or staff. There was the Metco, Mr. A at the high school, and I believe, and I don't know if he's still there, and there was the French teacher. So they said that that could have been a little bit better for them to have an experience of that. They did both participate in the College Bound program. And that was very beneficial to them when they were seniors at the high school. Let me see, let me just kind of talk about where they are now. My older daughter graduated from UMass in May, and she majored in Afro-American studies. She chose to go that route in college. She just said when she was at Needham High School, I think someone maybe mentioned this earlier and I can't remember, is that during her time is they spent like 2 weeks on the civil rights movement. And she said there could have been more exposure to history of the country in a different light. She is now an assistant teacher at a charter school in Boston, and she's very active and very much an activist towards education for all. And she's teaching at a school system that is completely the opposite of Needham. It's probably 98% Black, and I'm not sure the percentage. My younger daughter is a sophomore at UMass and finding herself at the moment, and they're both very active. They both participated in all of the Black Lives Matter marches in town. And one thing about for me is that I think I was very naive, and I think this year has been very challenging and eye-opening. I was like, I thought this country was better off than it was, and silly, not silly, that's not the right word, but I just felt like it was a big wake-up call. And this conversation this summer with my older daughter, I was, a little bit of afraid of going to the protest in town, and it's just being fearful of maybe partially COVID and this type of stuff. And my daughter said to me, which was, very opening, she's like, Mom, I'm always going to walk through life very different than you did. Going back to a comment earlier about white privilege. And I don't think privilege is being money wise. I think I can walk into an environment very differently than the other 3 members of my household. And knew it, but boy, this year it is a lot more on the top of my mind. So I'll close with that, turn it back over to you, Mark, but I will take questions later.
Yeah, no, thank you. And the truth sometimes is hard to hear, yet if we don't hear it, we're going to keep making the same mistakes. So really appreciate you're talking about the teachers and some of the education. I think that's really important. So
thank you.
He's going to talk about his experience of living in Needham for 24 years with some challenges. So Manny, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. Um, First of all, I would like to thank the Needham Diversity Initiative and Rebecca Drill for inviting me to speak on the panel. And I'll also take this opportunity to thank Rebecca for being a wonderful friend to our family for 20 years. I think at 20, maybe more than that. Um, and I would like to thank Mark for just listening to me patiently. Um, Something we should be all doing, I think. Um, Let me begin with a little background. I am deafblind due to a rare progressive genetic disorder called Usher syndrome. Um, to just give you a context, Helen Keller also had Usher syndrome. Of course, I'm no Helen Keller. Um, so right now, I am totally blind with just light perception, and my hearing is, I have profound hearing loss in both the ears. So it's funny that I started with a hearing loss at the age of 4, and then I started losing my eyesight. But then my eyesight, I lost it before my hearing. Right now, with my hearing aid, I can be functional. Um, um, I was a software engineer for 30 years. And came from Bombay, India, and moved to Needham in 1996. Um, and then worked in many companies around the Boston area. The reason I moved to Needham was I needed to be able to use the commuter rail, and Needham was one town that offered me the choice of 4 train stations, and I could pick any of those 4 so that I could walk to the train station. Um, and after I lost my eyesight, and I couldn't work anymore, I volunteered for the Usher Syndrome Coalition and helped them build a global registry. Then after that, I decided to go back to my passion for writing poetry. I had written poetry long back in my college days, to win my sweetheart. But after she agreed to marry me, I stopped writing poetry. So I decided I'll go back to it again, and I did my MFA in poetry. I think I was the first blind student the college had, and the disability department was very underfunded and had no idea how to assist me. But thanks to the faculty and friends, I managed to get a degree in poetry. Um, then after that, I decided to enroll in the Hadley School for the Blind to learn Braille. Um, I thought that was something I should have it in my tools for interacting with the computer, and just in case I lost my hearing too. It took me 3.5 years. Now I'm considered Braille literate. Um, so that's my background. Um, I just want to talk to you about the challenges I faced on a given day. Um, so in one of the poems I had, one of the poems starts with, "It's my lucky day if the toothpaste agrees to land on the bristles." That sums it up all. Um, so to begin with, the thing that I use most have to be in the same place for me to locate it, to find it. I dread the days when my wife decides to clean the house and move things around. Um, so it's very important for me. And then I also end up dropping things and spilling food and milk, and which is just something that I've gotten used to. The worst part is the bottle cap or a medicine bottle cap that falls on the floor, and I have to grope all over to look for it. Um, and then I am used to my house completely. But if I lose my presence of mind, um, and I don't have the XY coordinate of where I am, then I'm totally lost inside my house, and I have to start walking slowly and trying to touch something so I um, get to know where I am. Um, and then as far as the computer goes, I use the screen reader software, which helps me a lot. But it's all hearing, and I have to do a lot of interaction with the computer. It's not just um, um, it's not just that I have good hearing and I can hear everything the computer says. I don't understand a lot of things, a lot of words spoken. So I have to be able to interact down to the letter, where it can tell me phonetically what the letter is. So it's a struggle, and by the end of the day, I'm mentally tired. I also have to listen to audio. So, I mean, hearing is a big blessing for me, but at the same time, it is really tiring. Um, um, I just want to, I mean, and then if I have to go any place outside the house, I have to plan in advance. I cannot do anything on the spur of the moment. Like if I have to go to a doctor's appointment, I have to book the ride a day in advance, figure out if the receptionist will help me inside the office, because the ride will just drop me at the door. And if it is on the second floor or third floor, I have no idea how to go there. So I have to make arrangements in advance with the receptionist to see if she can come down and take me up. So it's a lot of planning, a lot of anxiety. Um, I hope I gave you an idea of what a day looked like. Um, I use the cane, but I'm not very comfortable with it. And outside my house anywhere, if it is an unfamiliar area, places where I know, um, I have been there many times and I've received mobility training. I'm fine, but anywhere else, it just unnerves me completely. So coming to that, I mean, the people, I find people not asking if they can help because they're afraid they might offend the person. Um, it, it, I think, from my point of view, it actually, I think they should ask if they can help, because a lot of people, especially me, I will greatly take your help, because it's a load off my head. There's so much mental drain um, when I am in unfamiliar surroundings. I mean, if they say they don't need the help, please don't take it personally. Um, I can think of another example where I go to the doctor's office, and I go to the reception and I give my health card and confirm my appointment, and then I have to walk back to the waiting room, and I have no idea where I'm supposed to sit. And it's funny that nobody comes up to help, and I have to end up asking the receptionist, "Can you just give me directions to go to any empty chair?" Um, I'm sorry. Um, and then there are people who stereotype the blind. Like I've had people come up to me and ask me, tell me that, "Hey, I know a blind person who ran the marathon. Why don't you try running the marathon?" uh-oh. Or they might say, hey, why don't you get a guide dog? Without knowing that, to get a guide dog, you need to have hearing. I got rejected twice because of my hearing. As far as and then yeah, there's one more situation that I've landed into many times in gathering. People don't come up to me and say hello, just a simple hello. I don't know, they feel like they are there's some fear or something about offending me and not knowing what to tell me. um, all I need is a little tap on the shoulder and a hello, a simple hello, um, for that human connection.
I have to share, as Manny, if that's okay, as we were planning this, we've had several long conversations and we've developed a friendship. You can feel Manny is a warm, kind, loving human being. And if I saw Manny before, I probably wouldn't know what to say, so I wouldn't say anything. And through this experience, I've got to know him, and so I look forward to staying connected. And I've made a friend, so I want to thank you for that, Manny.
Can I just add a few little things about the Needham community?
Sure, and then we're going to ask a few get other folks to ask some questions, but please.
With that, I'm sorry.
Yes, please, if you want to add a couple things, that'd be fine.
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate to have very good neighbors. They let me have their phone numbers in case I need any help when I'm alone in the house. They even alert me for packages left on the door. And then at one time, I remember I broke a glass in the kitchen and I didn't know what to do. I just couldn't move. And I called my neighbor. She said, just stay there. And she came over. She had the key to my house. She came over, cleared the whole place up and said, now you can walk anywhere. I mean, I'm blessed with good neighbors. I remember one incident very, very well. I told Mark about it. This is post 9/11. After the game, after 9/11, there was a soccer game for my son, and I went there. And I was so terrified, so anxious as to how people are gonna look at me, and I don't know what they're gonna say. But to my surprise, everyone came up and just said hello to me, talked to me, and that was a big burden off my chest. That felt really good. I'll never forget that. I think that's all for today. I think I exceeded my time.
Oh, it was fine, thank you. And you really touched people, Manny, with your authenticity and your speaking truth.
I didn't mean to. I just spoke from my heart.
That's all we can ask you to do. So thank you for that. And so now we're going to open it up to some questions, and wanted just to hear a little bit from Sensory in terms of Medco, because just curious from your perspective, being a Medco student some time ago and now being the president of the Medco Association and a parent, just curious what's changed and what's sort of the same in terms of some of the challenges that you faced when you were a student and some of the challenges you hear from your people in your community and your kids are facing, and maybe what's changed.
Am I unmuted? I'm sad to say that the only thing that has changed is that I'm older. The people I went to school are older, that the parents are older. The situations are still the same. I, I remember as a child being called the N-word. My son has been in a situation where because he is athletically sound, that is just because of his race, and otherwise he's dumb. And I will say thank you to his friends who stood up for him in those conversations where you're not in a conversation and somebody speaks of you, and to have a friend stand up for him and then tell him, that's hard. It's it's hard to raise your kid to be always being the one that has to turn the other cheek. It's hard to raise a child to, how do you say, know when to fight, know who to go to fight, but not be the angry Black boy or the angry Black girl. It's hard as a parent to know that you are wrong and not be the angry Black woman. In this society, as a Black female, as a Latina, like everything about that is either overly sexualized or undereducated or aggressive. So when that's your boxes that people put you in and you come out and you are showing the other boxes, it doesn't matter. You still are being plagued in that box. There was a situation where my son and another son, both of them are of color. But obviously I am myself and my husband, who is a minority, are raising our kids, but the other one is being raised by a white family. That's a dynamic that is different altogether. And within that, sometimes the white family forgets about their privilege. And so they forget that their child does not have that privilege. And when a situation arose between our two children, they were quick to throw their privilege to downgrade my child, who is in the school respected and does not have an issue, and their child does have an issue. They forgot that their white privilege is not carried onto their child. So when you now put my child against your child, it's two Black children. And so I then have to fight for my child, but then I almost have to fight for your child. And that situation ended up in what was a friendship amongst my kid and that kid, now not as prevalent as it was. And myself now restricting that relationship to just being in school, because I don't feel that that family now has my kid's best interests. And so if you don't have my child's best interest, then my child is not going to be in your presence, because I feel you will push my child to save your child. And that's not how I am. So, but with that, I had to address it. Some situations you don't always address, because being a Black person, I don't always want to see that I'm fighting, but I am fighting. And so I had to address it, and I called them on it, and they went into the blame game and blamed the school. Instead, the school was trying to push instances on me. But if you call my child a racist, and you call my child a racist to the school to save your child, but you do not put the whole situation of why my child would be a racist, you are now putting my child's education under arms, and my child would be kicked out of the school because it's a no tolerance school. And just as like a background, what it was is my son had said to the child that, it was about music, and the other child had said to my son, what kind of music do you listen to? And stereotypically, because he's Black, you should listen to hip hop. Well, in our house, we listen to everything, very eclectic. And my son said such. And the student then said, well, you're not really Black. My son's response was, well, how can you be Blacker than me? Your parents are white. That is a fact. He is being raised by white parents. It's not a racist thing, it's a fact. And I feel like sometimes people need to know what is fact and what is being accusatory. And in that instance, the whole situation brings it to light, whereas the student told the parents my child was a racist and just told the statement. So my thing is, in the town of Needham, people are always coming from where their backgrounds. But I think if we have more of an open heart and we really see people for who they are, we can get a better hand on this. It's not going to go away. You know, the N-word in the school, it disheartens me. It disheartens me that the N-word at a school, to me, in my impression, is not taken lighter, but is not held to the same accord if a swastika is put on the school. I do not see people coming out in arms when there's an N-word at the school. It's almost brushed under the table. Oh, this happened. But you put a swastika, you attack that horrible situation where, and I can't remember exactly the Judas name of it, of that, where the house was broken into. Everybody was in arms, and so was I. But when you have Black kids being, Black kids can't run down, like males can't run down the street because the police are being called. Where are the arms? Where are the arms when our METCO students and our Black and our people of color are in the town and they're feeling this? These are not new stories. Everybody has a story. So where is the up in arms? Where is that? For the young gentleman who had these situations? I've had those situations. I've chosen to stay in Needham. My choice doesn't mean that I need to stay here and take it. I've chosen to be here, but then make my voice heard. So when you say, what has changed? Nothing, but I'm hoping by being in here, people hear me, hear the tear, hear the hurt in my voice. They know that there is a emotion behind it. There's a person. And I just think these need to be heard, but there needs to be an equal amount of objective and objection for every occurrence. For the young man, Manny, every occurrence. For the young man, for Amit, every occurrence. And I please apologize, the other lady with me on this panel. Every occurrence needs to have power behind it. If Needham stands for everybody, like they say they do, then we would have louder voices. That's what I would say.
Well, thank you, Sincere, and really want to thank all our panelists, Sincere, Manny, Leah, for just speaking from your heart and speaking rawly. I think people are touched and frustrated, and we're going to end our day today with some actions, because we seem to have the same conversations each year and we're not moving the dial. And so the question is, what can we do?
Mark, can I just add one thing to Sincere?
Please,
I'm not sure if I said your name correctly.
No,
Thanks. That was pretty intense. I mean, as the mother of two Black daughters, biracial, one daughter goes by Black, one goes by mixed race. They are still trying to find themselves. It is, and I'm not even sure where my thought's going to go here, but I do remember when they were in high school, that, as they communicated to me, as I said earlier, there's some things I cannot identify with. I can identify with being a woman. I cannot identify with being a woman of color, right? My husband is the one who brings that to the table for them. And, they at times were ignored or felt like, I remember when it came prom time, that was one of the hardest times for them because they didn't get the promposals, or they liked the junior harbor cruise because nobody got asked for that. It was just something they went to, but they always still, but they're strong, but they're just going back to that point, just these small microaggressions that just keep kind of adding up. It's like a death by 1,000 cuts. And, I just hope that we keep up the power. And I just want to say thanks for sharing what everyone shared on here. I speak from a different light, but like I said, I need to keep building my own arsenal because, as I said earlier, I feel pretty damn naive at times, and it kind of makes me angry in a different way. But thank you, Mark, for letting me speak again.
We want to send our heartfelt appreciation to our panelists who spoke truth, who spoke from their heart and spoke authentically. Really, really touched us. So thank you all so much.